interesting. Welcome to the podcast today. I am sitting here with Charlie Eve at the History Magpie on Instagram. And I am so honored that he has agreed to come on the podcast so we can chat and I can share a bit that I found about some of his ancestors. We're going to dive into that at the end of the episode. But first, I just want to talk to you, Charlie, about you, about why you do what you do and all that you've been sharing on Instagram. I love your account. I can't remember when I came across it, sometime last year, I believe. But I feel like there's a lot of people on social media now that are getting more interested in like history, understanding what happened. I know for me, when I was in school, social studies was our history. And that was probably my least favorite class. But I feel like now that I'm older and I can choose what I want to learn about and dive into things that maybe aren't the typical curriculum, it's really interesting. So I feel like there's a lot more people that are feeling like that now to uncover some more history in a more exciting way. But before we dive in to all of that, can you just introduce yourself a bit for people that maybe aren't familiar with you? Let us know who you are, where you're from, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. First off, thank you for having me and lovely to meet you. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Charlie Eve. I'm a public historian that mostly shares all of my work on social media, but I focus on British history and kind of getting those uncovered hidden gems out to the public. So as you said yourself, in school, you weren't too interested in history, and everyone always seems to think someone like myself would have the opposite answer to that. But again, I thought history was quite boring in school, but that's obviously because of how it was taught. You're thinking about exams in mind. You've got to remember all of these dates and the names of kings and queens and whatnot. So the process didn't really sit right with me. It wasn't until I got a lot older and I moved away from home. So originally I'm from the northeast of England, a really small coastal town that looks over the North Sea. Very cold in the winter. We get barely a decent summer, but it took me moving away and then thinking about my home and actually getting interested about the heritage and the history and kind of looking back further into my family and seeing what I can find. That's what reignited the flame for me. Since then, I've basically gone on a journey traveling across Britain. I document it on my phone and I share it out to the masses. And hopefully people find it interesting. I'm doing okay so far, but that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. So was there like a specific, you said like when you started learning a bit more about your family and their history that kind of got you into it, but was there a specific story or person or moment that kind of you're like, okay, I want to actually start sharing this with people?
Yeah.
How did
So
that go?
it kind of started from, like I said, from me moving and trying to understand the movement patterns of past family members and maybe where has that took us throughout the country, but has it took us anywhere else abroad as well? Funnily enough, my family, the Eve family, we're split in two across the country. So we have a very large cohort in the south, kind of based around London and mostly in the Essex region. And then there's a pocket of us that ended up in the northeast in Hartlepool. I moved across to the northwest in Manchester. So from doing that move, it just made me start thinking about, I wonder what past family members did, where did they move to, where if I could find it when we came over to the country, where did we settle originally? Did we move? As I imagine you know with these sort of things, you end up with a lot more questions than you do answers, especially if, like me, I don't really know where to look or what I should be looking for. There's tools like Ancestry and everything else out there that are great, but when you're getting suggested all of these names, it's overwhelming. And then eventually you just go, do you know what? I'll just leave it. And maybe at some point down the line, I'll find someone like yourself
Yeah.
that could make a little bit of the work that bit easier for me and clear it up. So, yeah. And then, like I said, with my southern family, it was obviously in England, we have a very healthy obsession of mocking each other and taking the mick. So it was us trying to find the origins of our family and where did we come from. And it's been a journey since then.
So as you were doing this, were you sharing videos then or when did that start?
So my video journey started, I think, what are we now? 2026. Jesus. 2023, maybe? My memory, for a historian, my memory isn't very good. But when I came to Manchester, I just started making videos on the local area. So statues, buildings, people. And I haven't really shared too much about myself and my personal history online, other than I got chatting to a guy called Kalima in the States, and he did a little bit of a dive into a family member, Ethel. I think she's my great grandmother or second great grandmother, but she grew up in the kind of the East End of London, I think, and apparently worked in the sugar factory. But again, it was just surface level, I guess surface level discovery with her. And from that, I really want to dig more, which is obviously this conversation with you today. And I guess, yeah, it's having an interest in my southern family that are down in Essex, because we're the outcasts. We got banished up north, and I'm now continuing that line up here. But like I said, a lot of my family are down in Essex.
So do you know what brought your family up to the north? Was it just
So
work?
my dad's dad, my granddad Ron, he travelled up to Hartlepool, where I'm from. So he travelled up to the northeast coast, and I think it was for work. It's one of those things where I see him. I saw him quite a lot in my life, but you never actually sat
Right.
down and quizzed the guy. So he came up to work, and then he was a bit of a naughty lad. He liked to jump between women, shall we say. Uh, the family's again split into that way, but he got chatting to my nana Pamela, and then it kicked off from there. They started a whole life. They gave birth to my dad and his brother up this way, and then they went out to Spain and continued their life in Spain for a long time. Eventually, coming back as they got older. But from what I remember, from some of the questions I asked my granddad, he travelled around a little bit with the forces when he was younger. He remembers during World War II getting obviously evacuated with the rest of the children, and he didn't like it, so he found his way back to London all by himself when he was far too young to be traveling across the country. But yeah, ultimately it was work that brought him up to the north, and then the northern branch of the family started from there.
Oh, cool. So I'm curious, how did you go from loving history to building a platform? Like, you have quite a few followers. Are you only on Instagram, or do you share on TikTok or?
So I'm initially started through Instagram and TikTok, and then Facebook has been a bit of a new venture for me. But again, that one's grown quite fast.
Oh, cool. So how did that process go? Like, did you just start videos, sharing videos, creating videos, and people just came? Or how did
Yes,
you blow up?
there was no intention to go the way it's gone, really. It was just looking for a creative outlet. I had a career in social media at the time. Obviously, I moved to Manchester, and my job at the minute, it was based in videography. So I used to do some freelance work for some marketing companies. I would do weddings. I worked for TV for a little bit, and that was kind of small scale adverts. And we kept the elderly active during COVID. We'd go to these heritage sites and kind of do these little fitness programs for the elderly in the
Cool.
country. So I had that media background.
Right.
Came to Manchester, I got a job in social media. Now, I never wanted to be in social media at first. It was
Really?
so daunting, and the idea of being online all the time, it didn't feel nice to me, especially from that TV background. And then I landed a job with a company called Secret Manchester, and it was great because I got to document the food and drink industry in the city. So I was going around creating all these videos for tourists, essentially giving them tips and tricks of where you need to eat, where you should visit, where you can experience culture and whatnot. Um, and it became a lot. And in social media, you can get burnt out really easily. I wanted a creative outlet. I don't know why I chose to do another social media thing as a creative outlet, but it just happened. I got really interested in local history. And I'd love to say it was a really profound like epiphany, like a moment. But I literally went out, and there's a statue dedicated to Abraham Lincoln in the middle of the city. And I went out with a question: why is there a statue of Abraham Lincoln in Manchester? I took my phone with me. I took a couple of clips, took a couple of selfie videos of me on the site, and then it started from there. I came back, did my research, put a little janky script together, and just posted it. And it quickly grew from there. I did like
Really?
a few videos, and I think because I already had a presence in the city and people were familiar with my face online, um, it must have resonated with people. And then next thing you know, after a few months, I hit around 40,000 followers.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I'd love to say I had a technique, but I was just throwing things at the wall, and people liked it, great. If people didn't, then I was just having something creative that I could enjoy.
Right. Well, I think probably having your background in video and content already probably helped to kinda
Yeah.
know how to piece it together in an interesting way, but that's great. I mean, I I do not have that. I've been online for, like, 8 years, and I'm at 4,000, but that's okay. That's okay. We all have different journeys, right?
That's the process. Like the following has been a cherry on top because coming into history and a career in history and content creation now, I didn't come down your I guess your standard academic route. I did study at university, but it wasn't for history. And it wasn't until I started getting involved with these museums and then I was taken under their wing on a freelance basis, I got to learn from all of these different departments, learn how to source properly, how a museum is run, the processes of gaining and trading artifacts, and these stories that we tell and how we should tell them to the public so we don't scare them with all of this information. It was nice because I got to marry two worlds, my storytelling world with, I guess, the academic side of history. But in the end, that is what history is, isn't it? It's storytelling. And I just did it in this medium that I knew how to do already.
So do you have a favorite post that you've made, like a favorite maybe a favorite history story or something that you created that you loved?
Well, that is a good question. Favorite post? I'll give you two because I can never pick one.
That's alright.
One is a local story from my hometown. I went back up to the northeast, and I don't know how, because after living there for the best part of I think 22 years, there's a local museum, and it turns out to be I think it's the only World War One battlefield in the UK. And to me, that is a major thing.
Really?
That is up in the northeast. It is very much outside of my hometown or the region is not known. And if something like that existed in London, it would have all of the funding, so much marketing behind them. There'd be films made about it potentially. But because it's in this little town tucked away in the northeast of England, it's very much away from the epicenters of tourism and business in the country. This story was gone untold, or at least it hadn't gained much media interest. So I made a couple of videos, and again, the videos, they got hundreds of thousands of views. So many people now ended up visiting based on my
Oh,
video.
cool.
It gained itself a lot more interest. I was able to then make contacts for that place. So students were contacting me because they wanted to include them in their dissertation for their master's or their PhD or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Local newspapers and things began covering it. And then just recently, I had a tour of a clothing factory that have history dating back to World. Yeah, and they were looking for shooting locations for their new, I guess, their new season of clothing. And I put them in touch with the battery, the coastal battery that's in my hometown, and they loved it. So they've just been up there and they've done a whole photo shoot, like a whole
Wow.
product shoot there. And hopefully a part of their story can now be implemented into this clothing brand. So that was a really nice connection for me because somewhere from my hometown, I was able to put onto a bigger stage and let the world learn about it. And so that, and it grew from there and they've thanked me and everything. But I was just happy that I was able to kind of show off my little corner of England.
Mhm.
So that's a personal one for me. And then my second choice, simply because it's just such a cool experience. And 10-year-old Charlie was absolutely made up after that. I went to the Royal Armouries and they allowed me to get into a medieval suit of armour.
Oh, wow.
My day just consisted of swinging a sword around and having fun in armour. Yeah, 10-year-old me, dream come true. I was a knight for a day. So that video could have only had one viewer, but the fact that I got to do it,
Right.
brilliant. I can
Life
die.
made.
Yep, I can die happy.
That's really cool. I think that's really interesting about the historic landmark near your hometown.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we think that if we want to really dive into history, we have to go travel, find somewhere, you know, more interesting than our little hometown or wherever we're from.
Yeah.
But there's history everywhere, right? Like, just considering how did people get like, I live in Canada, so obviously I'm white, so my people had to come here from somewhere, right? So just wondering and asking those questions, like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
What was going on at the time? Like, just asking those little questions to see what history there is in your own location is
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
like you said, you very much when you live somewhere, it's almost like you struggle to see what's underneath your nose. You always look outwards. Linking back to what I said earlier, it took me moving away to then get interested in my home region and understand how it interacted with the world. Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, very cool. So, what type of history are you most interested in?
Ooh, I feel like I wear two hats when it comes to this because in terms of my work on social media, it's very much that public history where I might only be scratching the surface, but it's just bringing it to the masses. So I never really focus on a specific time period. I just focus on a region. So obviously I do tend to lean towards the north of England because that's where I am. It tends to be shouted about way less compared to the south. As you can imagine, every tourist that comes to England, London tends to be the first place on the list. Um, so it's my job to get them away from there. And that can involve anything. It could be, have you ever wondered why there's holes in this wall that you walk past every day in the middle of Liverpool? Well, turns out it's from the Blitz. It could be medieval cap flaps. It could be, why is this building still standing? Why didn't we knock it down when it's surrounded by brand new houses or whatever? So my social media tends to be fairly open game. I think that's what keeps it interesting to so many people, and maybe that's why people do follow me. But personally, I guess I really like probably based around kind of World War One and World War Two, but not the conflicts, the people and the events that were happening on the fringes of, I guess, the main theatres of war. So again, the museum I've worked with the most is probably Western Approaches Command in Liverpool. They tell the story of this battle that was ongoing in the Atlantic Ocean throughout the entirety of the war, but it's fought between these merchant sailors that their job is just to transport goods to and from America and other allied nations. And they got caught up in the middle of this horrendous sea war where German submarines were trying to sink as many ships as possible to stop our nation from being well fed and full of resources. So, and then you get the people working in the bunkers and finding
Mhm.
lighters that have fell out of people's pockets, and there's items of clothing that have been stuffed behind radiators. Um, those human stories that are caught up in these much wider conflicts. So definitely kind of modern history, but I guess also leaning into a little bit of working class history. Your everyday man caught up in those headline historical moments.
Yeah, and I think that's really the heart of the history, like what was going on for the everyday people. I
Yeah.
mean, we can look at, monarchs and kings and all of that sort of thing, but when you look at the people, what was going on, which I mean, there's not as many records all the time, especially when you go farther back, but considering what life might have been like for just the everyday person at
Yeah,
that
like I
time.
want to like it's great to know that what a king did and all the
Mhm.
battles and the politics and whatnot, but I want to know outside of that sphere what was life like for the servants? What
Mhm.
did the local farmers think when their country was always going to war? Did they know why they were going to war? How would have daily life looked like for them when the country was in a period of war or if they're in peacetime? There's so many more questions to be answered than when you're looking at these greater figures that obviously got to hold the pen in the history books,
Right.
as you say.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel like that's a good transition into looking.
So tell me, what was the Eves doing?
Yeah,
You
I
can
can tell
fill
you a
that.
little bit. Okay, we're gonna get into it now. So when we first connected, I offered to do something for you called an origin initiation, which is when I got a little bit of information from you. And then spent a couple hours researching and to kind of see what things evolved, what things kind of opened up. So I'm gonna share with you. That's just a white screen for now.
And I apologize for the chaos that I dumped onto you. I feel like
Oh no,
there was no clear work involved in my family tree. I kind of just took what ancestry
that's
gave me.
totally good. No, it was great. You actually have a lot of names and information in your family tree. You said it was from your cousin that
Yeah,
you kind of added
yeah,
things to. But I feel like that's how most people start. If they have a family member that's already done a lot of the digging and research,
yeah,
why not take from that, right? So this is your family tree. Here's your grandparents. Is that right? Yeah. Grandparents. No, second. These are your great grandparents,
yeah. These are my great. Yeah,
Charles and Ethel. So Ethel is the one that you had someone else do some digging for before.
yeah. So again, little bit just below the surface, but it was great to make that first step to go backwards.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you had a lot of information, kind of, a lot of hints adding the parents in there. You had asked if I could look at down the Eve line to find out, about the people, their lives, and also if anyone had fought in recent wars in history. So it is possible that your great-grandfather, Charles Thomas Eve, served in World War II. I don't know if you know if he did or not, do you?
Sure.
Okay. Service records aren't public yet.
Yep.
You yourself can actually apply to get them, and I can
Okay.
send you the link to do that if you'd like, but I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's possible he did. He would have been about 30 years old when the war started, so it's definitely a possibility. But I settled in looking into your second great grandfather, Stephen Eves here. Eve. I keep on saying Eve. All right, so Stephen Eve. This is your second great grandfather's birth record here. So here's Stephen. He was born on the 20th of May, 1879, Ilford, Essex, which is East London, right? His father was Charles Eve, and his mother was Hannah Eve, formerly Bert. That's what that says there.
Yeah.
So this matches with what you had in your family tree on Ancestry. His father was a general laborer. It's just what his occupation is here.
Okay.
So then in the 1881 census, it's a little hard to see this one, but your great-grandfather, Stephen, he is right here, Stephen. He was 2 years old, and he was living with his parents, Charles and Hannah, and 3 brothers. So we have Charles, John, and Joseph was his younger brother. So Charles was a laborer. His father was a laborer, and they were living at the Roden Cottages in Ilford, Essex. On the next page of the census, we see that there's other people living in their households. We have Emily, who says mother, so that's Charles's mother. So that would be your third great grandmother. She was widowed and 64 years old, and then also 2 brothers. So 2 of Charles's brothers were also living in the household. So it was a quite full household in
Yeah.
1881.
Very different to how I grew up. I was an only child, no brothers or sisters.
Really?
Yeah, that's interesting to see.
Yeah. So very full. They were all like general laborers, so I'm not sure exactly what that meant.
Yeah.
But living there in East.
So they weren't content creators.
No, they're no. Wouldn't that be cool? So then by 1891, they were living in the civil parish of Barking in the county of Essex, which was nearby where they had lived in Ilford. Your third great grandfather, Charles Eve, you can see him here. He was 36, and your third great grandmother, Hannah, was 33. By now, they had 8 children. So they had 7 boys and 1 girl. And later on, they'd go on to have 2 more children. So they had 9 children altogether. No, 10 children altogether. So your great-great-grandfather, Stephen, here he is. He is about 12 years old. And he was the third of those 10 children. So what do you think it would have been like, growing up in East London, late 1800s, a family of 10 children? What do you think that would have been
are
like?
they all still in the same house at this point?
Well, this was 1891. There was 8 children at home. They went on to have 2 more children. I'm not sure if the oldest, they might have been gone by the time the younger ones were born, maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that the East End of London, it's always been kind of, it makes sense knowing that the men were general labourers. The East End of London, all of the factories and the docks and everything that were based in that area. Because I know my granddad, and when we looked at it, I think it was my great grandmother or second great grandmother Ethel. A lot of them would have had jobs obviously throughout the factories, and that area was severely targeted obviously when the wars came as well to hinder production for the country. And couldn't imagine if a lot of the family were working. Obviously, they must have had pretty grueling lives and
Right.
working in these factories, and especially that many of them under one roof. It must have been a very busy and kind of high stress
Yeah.
home environment compared to at least how I grew up anyway.
Yeah. Definitely not lazing on the easy chair.
No, no.
No. Yeah, so I was trying to find out if Stephen served in the war. I couldn't find any record for World War I for him,
Yeah.
but I did find it's kind of hard to see, it's kind of dark, but he enlisted in the 3rd Battalion, Essex Regiment Militia in
Mm,
January 1896. So he was only 17 years old, and his residence was at 9 Sansom Street in the parish of Leytonstone. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. So I wasn't totally sure if this was him, but after looking at where that was, it was about a half mile from where their family was living in 1891.
that
Pretty
makes
sure
sense.
this was him based on his age, really other Stephen Eves in the area that were the right age. But in that record, he was a bricklayer. It said that he worked in a brick field. Let me
Ah,
just go back. Oh, I skipped over one. That's why. Okay. It did say he worked at, I have to look over at my bigger screen. The name of his residence of his master, which it says, is Park Brickfield in Wanstead. And it was Mr. E was his master, I guess his employer.
yeah.
And he was a brickmaker laborer. This was at 17 years old. So we go here. So I looked at, where this actually was, where that brickfield was. And I found this little bit of history about it. It says the Wanstead Flats brickfield ceased operations when its lease expired in 1881. However, brickmaking was to continue in the area. In the 80s, another brickfield opened, the Park Brickfield, which I don't know if you can really see that here, but it was across the road, north side of Aldersbrook Road. And this was operated by East and Barrett. So that Mr. East, that was his employer, of whom little is known. Anyways, they lived near Stratford. And so he would have worked in this brickfield here in East London. There used to be a large brickfield here just south of it, but I guess that closed and then they opened this little one here. So I thought that was interesting. If you're ever in East London, you can go visit that area and
Yeah,
map
definitely.
down where that is. Um, yeah, so that's just, overlaying. So it's about here in relation to
Wow.
central London
Yeah,
there.
I need to go there now. And the fact that 17,
Yeah.
was it a brickmaker, brick labourer? I think at 17, I think I was working in a bar, glass collector.
Well, yeah, most weren't even working.
Yeah, I think I was maybe glass collecting but yeah, huge contrast in jobs there.
Yeah, that would have been some intense labor, I'm sure. So also on that document, it tells a bit of a description about him. He was 5'3.5" tall, 110 pounds. So he was just a little guy.
Yeah,
Brown hair, blue eyes. It almost looks like when I first looked at this, I thought it said he was 14 years old.
yeah.
But looking at other numbers on this document, I
The way
think
they
that's just
broke
how
the
this guy
seven.
did the sevens. Yeah.
Okay,
Because
yeah,
14, that just didn't make sense. And
yeah,
17 matched his age.
yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting to see a bit about his physical description, right?
Really small guy. Well, the Eves, we're not blessed with height. To be fair,
Right.
I'm 5'8", so
Yeah.
we're only making small increments over time by the looks.
Yeah. So he completed, this is his service record. He completed about 7 weeks of initial drill and training as a private in the 3rd Battalion, Essex Regiment, and then paid for an early discharge in April 1896. So his service was short and local. He wasn't involved in combat or duty, but I thought it was interesting. So he paid his discharge by purchase. So he paid to be discharged. So I'm not sure if there was something
Interesting.
happening in the family or why, but that
I've
was
never
just a
heard of
few
that
weeks
before
later.
either.
Yeah,
Being discharged via obviously like just purchasing your way out of
right.
service.
Yeah. So maybe because there wasn't any wars or anything happening, they could do that.
Yeah,
I'm not really
I
sure.
wonder if maybe because if he was paid for service as well, maybe the family needed obviously more income coming through as well.
Yeah,
So maybe he
maybe.
just sought better options, or he
Yeah,
was paid better as a labourer. That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I'm not sure. But then, a couple years later, Stephen married Rose Ann Capes. And this is the St. Mary's Church in Plaistow, where they were married. So your second great-grandparents were married here on the 24th of July, 1898. So they were both only 19 years old when they got married. Yeah.
Already lived like 10 different lives from the age of 17 up to that point. Active service, working in such a hard industry, getting married at 19.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they had an early start for sure.
Yeah.
So I was curious, why would they have gotten married so young?
Mm-hmm.
Looked into their oldest daughter's birth information. So she was baptized. I couldn't get the actual image of the baptism record, but this is the transcript of it. She was baptized on the 6th of January, 1899. So she was likely born in December 1898 sometime. So they were married in July. So that means Roseanne was likely about 4 months pregnant when they were married. So that's probably why they got married at
Didn't
19.
want their child born out of wedlock.
Yeah, didn't want the scandal. So yeah. But then by 1901, he and Roseanne were living in Plaistow, West Ham, which is also in East London. Stephen was now 22 years old, and they had 2 children. And he was a bricklayer laborer, so I'm not sure if he would have been working in the same location or not, but two children, Mabel and then Stephen Jr.
That's one of the main things I noticed when, obviously, I wasn't sure if the family tree was right in terms of the suggestions it was giving me, but the Eve men, we weren't very creative with the names.
Yeah,
going,
a lot of Charles.
Yeah, we all.
Yeah, no, it helps to verify that you got the right people, right? So by 1911, Stephen Eve, he was still a general laborer, and now he's at a shipyard. They now had 6 children, ages 5 months to 12 years old. So your great-grandfather was Charles, right? Yeah. He is the youngest one here. He's 5 months old. And they were living at 10 Gordon Street in Plaistow. Now, I tried to find where this would have been, looking at an older map and so I looked at the addresses on the census before and after them and found that there was Colne Street and Meredith Street, which I found on this older map. And then there's a Gordon Place on current Google Maps. That is this street right here. So I think when they lived there, it was actually a full street that went all the way through, but now it's just a little half street. So I'm not sure if the house they would have lived in is still there or if it's been torn down or whatever.
I'll have to check. Yeah, that's another place.
Yeah, another place to check, but this is about where they would have lived in relation to London there.
Oh, amazing. This is great because you're actually, I'm finding so much out, but you're actually giving me some physical places that I can.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted you to be able to go at least see some location that you can go and explore.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
So then by 1921, your second great-grandmother, Roseanne, she was widowed. So it says widowed here with 5 children. So we have Stephen, John, William, Dorothy, and Charles, your great-grandfather here.
Mm-hmm.
She was working as a domestic servant, and they were living in the same home at 10 Gordon Street as they were in 1911. So they lived in that location for at least 10 years. But what was interesting is these last 2 younger children, it says father dead. I'm not sure if you can see that there.
Yeah.
So for children under 15, they had to list if their father was dead or not. I guess the olders, they just put single or whatever.
Yeah.
But on Ancestry, what you had as his death date was 1928. That's based on your cousin's information. So I tried to find any sort of death record. I was looking at all different spellings of his name or anything, and I could not find it anywhere. Now, this says 1928, and that census from 1921, it said that he had already died. So I'm not sure.
Discrepancy, yeah.
Who knows? But I couldn't find a death record. There was one curious record that came up that I don't know if it's him for sure, but it could be. There was about I think maybe three others that it could have been another Stephen Eve, but this is a discharge record, well, an admission and discharge record for the UK Lunacy Patients
Well,
Register from Brentwood, Essex, which is nearby where he was living. Like I said, there's three other Stephen Eves in the 1911 census, so we can't be totally sure that this is him. We'd need to do some more research, but I thought that was curious.
yeah, definitely.
This Stephen Eve was admitted in on the 15th of July, 1912, and was discharged the following year in September of 1913. So that's definitely an area that we could dig into more to see if we can, verify based on where the other Stevens were at the time, or what, if it's possible that this is him. I'm not sure.
100%. It'd be interesting as well if we could find a kind of reason for admission,
Right.
asylum.
Yeah. And I mean, realistically, there's probably not much records around it unless there's like court records or something like that where there was actually an event that happened. And I'm not sure if that hospital, if they still keep records or not, but yeah, definitely something that could be explored to see if that matches with your second great grandfather.
Oh wow, that'd be so interesting.
Yeah. So that's the majority of what I have to share with you. There's a lot more things that we could uncover and more branches of your tree that we could dig into, like your paternal's, your father's mother's line. You don't have
Yeah,
anything in here. But I hope that was at least interesting to get started, to dip your toe into that.
that was brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much for that because I had nothing else other than names and potential dates. Obviously, just Ancestry showed me those little tabs, and that's all they were to me. They were names. I didn't know if any of it was right. And the fact that you could give me so much tracing that one person back and clearly had lived 20 people worth of lives
Yeah.
in that small amount of time, and the amount of people that was living it under one house. And yeah, it makes me feel very fortunate also to compare my own life
Mm-hmm.
and how different it was as well, especially in the time period that we're living. That was fascinating for that. Thank you.
Yeah. So looking over that, was there anything that surprised you in learning about that, or did you kind of expect?
I suspected that the region, so like Essex, I know a lot of the people in my family tree, a lot of them are congregating around there. So that's kind of solidifies that thought for me. I was surprised about how many people obviously living under one roof. I get it, they had a lot of kids, and once they obviously became of a certain age, they'd start moving out and everything. But you actually answered a question that I had of because I only grew up an only child under my dad. And again, with the whole male name thing, my dad is called Ronald. His dad is called Ronald. And clearly, at some point down the line, they know of relatives named Charles and possibly nicknamed Charlie because that's just a common thing in England. So there's the name continuation. But I always wondered if I was an outlier in terms of family size because I grew up really, really wanting brothers and sisters. And I would look to my cousins down south that are still in Essex today, the people who obviously we have this information from as like a basis. But I'd look to those because they have a lot of brothers and sisters as well. My dad has a lot of brothers and sisters. And I wondered am I just the anomaly where I'm maybe the first only child in the family line? So has my dad put an end to the plus 10 children?
Right.
That tends to happen every time. So that was interesting. So maybe I need to reverse it then. When I start having
There
kids.
you go. You gotta get 10 kids there.
Yeah, 10 kids. But actually that's so weird because like even having conversations with my wife, when family size always comes up, I always say I really want a lot of kids. I even only a few weeks ago I made the joke about 6 kids. So there's something to it there clearly. Going back. But I like as well how the family has a really strong working class background, especially in the East End London and the type of trades that they were doing. Because my dad he was very much a labourer. He transitioned to working on trucks and obviously taking transport lorries up and down the country. My mum even worked on the construction of oil rigs.
Wow.
So my family have a very, I guess, hands dirty history in terms of business. And then you get to me, who obviously I won't have been the first to go to university, but I definitely haven't stepped foot in terms of that sort of manual labour work outside of I did a small stint working in a factory, and it wasn't for me. So
Yeah, no, that is not a life of luxury, that's for sure.
no, but yeah, I really like the working class history going on there, and it kind of comforts me knowing like the I guess the things my family had to go through to get to where they are today. Because I definitely say my family doing a lot better than I guess my ancestors have been
Mhm.
in terms of work. Thank you very much for that. That is, I'm a bit, although I now have so many more questions, but I guess that's what this is all about. I now want to dig even
Yeah,
further.
no, it's just a start to explore. But I am curious, so your great-grandfather, Charles,
Mhm.
he
Yeah,
would have been, I mean, his on that 1921 record, it says his dad was dead, is what it said, father dead, by the time he was 12 years old.
yeah,
What do you think growing up without a father? He had 5 other siblings. His mom was a domestic servant in East London. Can you kind of envision what that might have been like for him? He was the youngest of those 6 kids.
I mean, it would have been interesting to find out how hands-on was his mother as well, because obviously the job that she had, long hours during the day, especially if she's waiting hand on foot on other people as well. So, how much time did she actually have for her kids? I mean, I haven't experienced it because I'm only child, but what I've learned from people who do have bigger families, when you're the youngest, the attention kind of trickles
Mhm.
down, and you get either the least or the most, depending on the mentality of the parents. Obviously, as an only child, I got all of the attention. So it would have been really interesting for that. But I think it must have been tough, especially if your mum is really busy, you have that many siblings, you are grown up. Because what, he was 12 when the dad died?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometime between 2 and 12, so sometime in
In
there.
what, 12 really formative years? Like a 12-year-old, you're about to become a teenager, you have all of these emotions and hormones. And at that point, you're really looking for someone to teach you how you should interact with the world. And those times were massively different. The men was just, I guess, men with boys would be you grow, you get yourself a job, you provide for the family, and you be a good man. And if he's not there to imprint on him, how would that affect his social life? Did it affect who he interacted with? Was he horrible? Might like if he didn't have that kind of firm hand from his father to, I guess, mold him. Again, so many questions. And
Yeah.
growing up myself, my parents split up when I was quite young. And although I saw my dad, I saw him significantly less than a kid that would have grew up with both parents still together. I know how that shaped me in terms of my outlook on life. And look, I realized that growing up, I looked at a lot of, I guess, father figures in terms of media, films, TV, the other men that he interacted with. A lot of my friends were a lot older than me. And I was always looking to make like fellow friends and father figures proud. So would that have been the case for
Mhm.
young Charlie growing up?
Yeah.
So many questions. So many
So many
questions.
questions. Yeah. So I've just shown you a focused exploration, which can surface just in like a few hours of research. Obviously, opened up a lot of questions, doesn't answer everything. But from here, like we could keep investigating one branch at a time, like
Yeah.
confirming what happened between 1911 and 1921 to Stephen, or we could like zoom out and fully document the broader lineage across generations for your whole family. But either way, this is where it starts, right?
Yeah.
Just dipping your toes, starting to look. But
And
I'm
this is
wondering, do you think more people should look and know stories of their ordinary ancestors?
100%. I think even if you're not remotely interested in history, if you've grew up and you still think history is so boring, I have no interest in castles, history, people, wars, who were they, which it does happen. But I feel like even those people, how could you not be interested? Before we jumped on the call, I thought about this. If I didn't know who you were, yet you still have the job that you still do the work that you do. If you'd have just approached me on the street and suddenly gave me a pack of information and just said, "I've researched your family, read it," like how could you not be interested in what you find and what you discover? Um, and I think it's vital, especially to understand your place in the world. how can you just wake up and just go about your life, even if you don't have access to the resources? Like I've suddenly gained access to you now, and your knowledge and your skills that you bring to the table. How can you just wake up and go about your day and not wonder, was your great 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 grandfather doing the exact same so many years ago? Have you always been in this working class life? Where does your family traditions come from? Is there a reason that everyone in your family still, I don't know, does a certain thing at Christmas? Or is the reason that now you have a really small family? Or yeah, why? I guess my short answer to all of that is just yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's so fascinating.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for coming on here and letting me do this for you. I know if you are listening and you want to, you're interested in history, which if people are listening to this, I'm sure they are, you should go follow Charlie, the History Magpie, on Instagram. I'll put the links in the show notes. But is there any other places that they can find you? You said TikTok. I'll put
Yeah, you can
those in
find me
there too.
across.
But
You can find me across TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all under the History Magpie. I'm currently trying my hardest to write a book. So
oh, cool.
again, I'm up and down the country, seeing what I can uncover. But now maybe I need to start delving a bit more into my personal history and
Yeah, well, that'd be cool.
show people how they can go about doing that. But I think if people want to take one thing away from this podcast as well, is just this is such a valuable thing to do, because it really gives you a perspective on your place in the world and how your family have interacted with the world. If you love storytelling, whether it's reading, watching, listening, this is the ultimate story, because it's the story of you and the story of us. And your job, Megan, is to tell that, which is bloody brilliant.
Thank you. That was like the perfect little plug. Well, do you have any exciting projects coming up? I know that I followed your stories over the weekend that you were following like a reenactment of
Yeah, yeah.
the battle or whatever.
I have a lot of friends in the historical reenactment circles,
Oh, cool.
and they're the people that are bringing back things that we would have otherwise never been able to see and experience, and they're bringing them into the 21st century. Everything they wear to everything they use, the things that they do, it's all accurate. Well, as accurate as it possibly can be from the evidence that they can go off. And again, like you're giving people personal history, these people are allowing you to see and experience things that, unless we had a time machine, we would not be able to do. So that's been fascinating, because it's a whole other world I've been kind of documenting and looking into. And again, I've got friends that do it, so I've got access to that, and it lights up people's faces. Yeah, I'm filming up and down the country. I'm attempting to write a book, which is all, it's hush hush at the minute. But I think if people love my content, it's just a chance and a space for me to flesh everything out. So if you want more than just the surface, what you see on social media and everything, then it's for you.
Well, Charlie, I feel like I could chat with you all day about all the things you're doing and
I now
your
need a
family,
podcast
but
solely me asking questions about you,
yeah.
because yeah, that fascinates me. I need to swap it around, so maybe I can
Yeah.
bring you on my socials to pick your brain.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch. All right, well, thank you, Charlie. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening and being here for the podcast today. I love talking to Charlie, and I hope that you enjoyed the episode as well. So, what I did for Charlie, this is what an origin initiation looks like: a few hours of focused research that opens doors, raises powerful questions. It's not about just adding names to your family tree, but it's about understanding the lives that shaped yours. So if you want to sign up to do an origin initiation with me, you can go to knowyourancestors.co/origin, and we can get started on that. Thanks again for listening today. Thank you for being here. I would love for you to share this podcast with a friend and follow along for more episodes.